Okay.
Hello and welcome to episode 54 of the podcast, The Pocket Stylist. We start another week and I'm super excited because I am joined today by Kat of Seated Sewing. Kat, it's lovely to have you with me today. Tell everybody a little bit about you and then we will start to go into the conversation of what we're going to talk about. But introduce yourself first and it will just start to pan out beautifully.
Okie dokes. Thank you very much, Lisa. It's lovely to be here. So, my name's Kat from Seated Sewing. I am an adaptive clothes designer, so I design clothing for the disabled community. I was made disabled 15 years ago, and my fashion choices changed overnight. So I went from being able to have a girlies' day, shopping, trying on all the clothes you fancy, to not finding clothes that fit from an accessibility point of view and not be able to go into changing rooms. My fashion choice has shrunk significantly since becoming disabled.
And this is where we started to get to know each other a little bit, didn't we? Because somebody put a comment on LinkedIn and I commented, and then we've kind of gone from there. And you know, it's really interesting because from my point of view, clothes are a way that people can represent themselves. They can also make some, you know, people have heard me talk about this time and time again. They can make you feel brilliant or they can make you feel crap. And at the end of the day, we want to feel great in what we wear, but it goes into more than that. It's about, like you just said, it's the experience for the shopping. It's how accessible are the stores, etc., isn't it? If I was to ask you one question, and I would say, what is your biggest bugbear about the whole kind of clothing side of it? I'll put you right on the spot, sorry, but what would be your biggest bugbear?
My biggest bugbear is I can't go into a high street shop. I can't even go into a luxury brand and find clothes that are suitable for a wheelchair user.
Okay.
They're just not out there.
Right. Now, when you say, because obviously we would love to educate people that are listening to this podcast as well. When you say not accessible, do you mean how clothes are styled, or are you talking about looking around the store? Just elaborate a little bit more.
So stores on the whole tend to be quite accessible. Their changing facilities is a different story.
Yeah.
So changing facilities, yes, they may have a disabled changing room, but the size of that and being able to get in there and get changed is very, very difficult. There isn't the turning circle for wheelchairs.
Yeah.
From a styling point of view, you need a completely different cut when you are sat all day in your trousers.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
And everyone that has worked from home for the last 2 years will realise that trousers aren't designed to sit in all day.
Yeah.
They're actually designed to be stood in and to be walked in. And so being in a wheelchair, you need them longer at the back because they need to come around your back. You need them shorter at the front because any extra fabric that rubs against your body can cause sores. You can get, it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And you also need them longer in the leg because when you sat, you actually, because you bent, you need, so if you were to see a pair of wheelchair suitable trousers on a hanger, they look awful and they don't make sense.
Yeah.
But if you were to see them on a wheelchair user, they look really stylish, they sit really nicely, and you start looking like your old self again.
And again, that's so interesting, isn't it? Because, you know, people don't necessarily think about the things that you have just literally spoken about. They would say, well, you know, well, why can't Kat just go into, I don't know, let's take one of the high street retailers, into H&M and just pick off a pair of trousers and go and wear them. But actually what you've spoken about, it makes complete sense. Do you find that with seated sewing, you're really tackling this kind of problem and making kind of the awareness of the benefits of potentially having something tailored? Because that's another option, isn't it? Do you find that's where you're seeing kind of the traction coming from?
Yes, I think so. I mean, there's only two designers in the UK who have a disability and who are actively selling adaptive wear, and that's myself and Victoria Jenkins from Unhidden. So it's a very small pool, but we are determined that we are going to raise as much awareness as possible about this issue, because for one thing, if you can't find suitable clothing, how are you going to wear clothes to go for a job interview?
Yeah.
And there's a whole thought or process around, well, disabled people don't want to work. Actually, we do. And we've got a massive talent pool within the community. But if we can't find clothes that even let us get smart enough to go to a job interview, that side of your life is just not possible. So
the impact is huge, isn't it?
Massive, absolutely massive. Yeah. The assumption is you become disabled, you're going to stay in bed in your pajamas, or you'll live in joggers all the time. And don't get me wrong, a lot of the time, especially with the beauty of Zoom, I am in my joggy bottoms and a smart top. But if I have to go out and meet clients, or I have to go out and take measurements to do a bespoke outfit for somebody, I want to turn up and I want to look like I know what I'm doing and I feel happy in what I'm wearing.
Yeah. That goes then back to the whole personal branding side. It doesn't, it's about who we are as people in our business and how we represent our business. And, it's absolutely true. It's the same as, from my perspective as a stylist, if I rock up to a client and I've got unpolished shoes, or my shirt is ripped and it's not supposed to be, that type of thing. People go, oh, well, would I buy your service? So it's no different for yourselves in with regard to, you're still representing your business, but it goes back to the whole of, it's how you feel, isn't it? It's how you feel.
Yeah. And as a wheelchair user anyway, you've already got people's preconceived ideas in your mind of what you're able to do and what you're not. So you have to work that bit harder to get across those first anyway. And as you say, if you turn up looking like you've just rolled out of bed, no one's going to take you seriously. And it's such an important issue that we want to look our best and we want to shout about what we're able to do. But at the moment, it's such a bespoke service because we can't get it taken on by any mainstream supplier.
It is a bespoke service, but it's a very needed service, because you and I had a quick conversation, didn't we, before we kind of pressed record. And it's not just the style of the clothing, is it? It's about and when we talk about accessibility, I was talking about to you how you put it on. It's got to be easy to get on. It's got to be not restrictive. It's got to make you feel that actually, just like, everybody else, you can jump up in the morning and get dressed, whether it's you're, like you said, going to a supermarket or going to friends or you're going to work. You can't be thinking, oh God, this dress is beautiful, but it's a right pain in the neck to get on because of X, Y, Z. So there's a bigger picture here, isn't there?
Yeah. And it's not just getting it on in the morning. So I've got feeding tubes, I've got a colostomy, I've got a catheter. All of those are accessories outside of my body. So my clothes need to have the space so that as they fill through the day, I'm not uncomfortable and I don't get sore. So it's having the space to be able to deal with your body in the clothing that you wear. Sometimes you can go up 2 or 3 sizes and then you get a tailor to bring them in to fit. But if you're at the top range of sizing anyway, you haven't got the luxury of going up another 2 or 3 sizes
Yes.
to get the accessibility of the garment.
Yep. And again, you see, you've just highlighted something else. When we talk about, clothing for somebody who is disabled or who is in a wheelchair, we spoke about the styling being the longer leg or the higher in the back. But then you've just added another level to this with regards to, what you said with regards to yourself. Because again, it's about having the comfortability and having clothes that give you the confidence as well, isn't it? There's another layer to the clothing that we're talking about.
Yeah. And I think when people think disability, their first thought is wheelchair. But actually, wheelchair users are a really small percentage of the disabled community. We have got a massive community where they've got invisible disabilities, or they have visible but they're hidden. So colostomies, or they've had strokes, or they've had there's so many things, but people automatically think wheelchair disability. But to be able to go and have cancer treatment and not have to strip your clothes off, just being able to unsnap buttons so that you can access your body without having to strip off, just having that privacy makes a huge difference. Because you lose a lot of dignity being disabled, and by having clothes that adapt and fit and are universal, you gain a bit more control over what parts of your body you show and to who.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, and for everybody, my dog thought he'd make an appearance again today because you could probably hear him in the background. Do you know, I don't reckon there's any podcast recording that I don't do where he kind of tells everybody he's here. So if everyone can hear him, it is an important part.
Talbot family.
Exactly, the joys of working from home. And I was thinking, as you were talking about that, about the poppers on the sleeves and things like that, you know what? There are clothing brands that make breastfeeding tops specifically for a lady to breastfeed their baby in a public place, which is still dignified, etc. We have that focus, don't we? But we don't have exactly what you just said. My mum sadly passed away a couple of months ago, but she had a mini stroke before. And even now, thinking about it, I was just thinking about what you were talking about. I went and helped her get dressed because, listen, it was a mini stroke, so we still had movement, etc. But she's really struggled with the left-hand side of her body. And even now, thinking about what you were saying, I had to say, right, Mum, well, let's not put a jumper on today. Let's put a cardigan on as another layer to keep you warm, because it was easier for me to help her with the cardigan and for her to kind of just put her arm back and, put the cardigan on, than suddenly say, right, hang on a minute, let's see if we can circumnavigate this jumper. So you're absolutely right. There's so much to this that could just make people's life easier, because that's what it's all about, isn't it?
It is. Having an easier life and being able to express who you are in the clothes that you wear. I think one of the biggest problems is people are frightened to talk about disability. They hear disability or adaptive clothing or universal design, and they freeze because they don't want to say the wrong thing, so they don't say anything. Whereas they're happy to talk about breastfeeding and babies. That's cute, but disability is a bit of this dark art of subject. We don't want to talk about that, and yet 1 in 5 people at some time in their life will become disabled. So that's a massive statistic, and the spending power of the disabled community, known as the Purple Pound, is £200 million a month in the UK alone.
Really?
Huge. And what we can't get our heads around is, why do people not want to tap into that spending power? Why do they not want to service? We might not be their ideal client, but we will certainly, if they provide accessibility that we need, we will certainly support them. And people don't understand how big a market is out there just waiting to have someone design for us, or have products in a high street shop that we can go and buy.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because like it goes back to, we all, and I think the majority of us will say, if we find something that makes us feel good, right? Whether we can pay for it straight away, whether we have to save for it, or whether we put it on a credit card, if it makes us feel good, we will buy it. Absolutely, like you said, and it goes tapping into that spending power that you said just now. And it's like everything, isn't it? If I said to you, oh, Kat, do you know what? I've got the most perfect pair of trousers for you, but they're £500, right? You would say, do you know what, Lisa? If they make me feel good, I can sit comfortably all day from the minute I get up. If I can put them on easily, I'm having them. And actually, I'm going to have another pair. But, it's about that, isn't it? But then also what we need to kind of think about is, why should you have to pay that kind of money for a pair of trousers to make you feel like that? At the end of the day, it should be, I don't know, which Marks and Spencer's, for example, you can go in and go, do you know what? They do a long, but they do an extra long. Actually, extra long would be perfect for me because of the things that you spoke about. So it's about saying where we could spend it, because we will all spend something to, if it makes us feel good. Why should we have to? Because nobody else has to. They have a more of a streamline. So it's about, it's a huge topic, isn't it? It's
massive.
And the more we're talking, we're digging.
It sort of feeds into as well sustainability, because if you make a product right from the off and you make it to last, it's not fast fashion. And what we do as a bespoke service is we're making clothes that will fit people correctly and they will last. Yes, they'll cost a little bit more money because we're using better fabrics and we're sourcing them in a more sustainable way. But we are also, because it's bespoke, we also have to charge that extra money. And it's like that, the whole, if we could mechanize it somewhere, if we could get somebody to just make a collection, and we just need people to be brave.
You guys need to go on Dragon's Den. Don't you? You know what I mean? But you and Victoria need to go on there and start banging a drum. Listen, I know we talk about that, but I'm really intrigued. So is this a skill set, the sewing side? I can't sew a button on, right? So is this something that is self-taught, or did you have a background in this to bring into this kind of world that you're in?
No. So I was taught by my grandma when I was a kid. My grandma was a seamstress. And so I learnt at her knee. I've always sewn. I've always had an interest because I'm 5'11".
Yeah.
So, and I grew up in an age before there was tall ranges and extra long. So I've always, if I was going somewhere, I'd always make my own clothes because I knew how to do that. But since becoming disabled, I have had to very quickly learn how to pattern block, how to hack patterns that are commercial so that they fit my body. I've now sort of moved away from that, and I'll literally just make a pattern from measuring someone. But I've had no formal fashion training, and sadly, adaptive fashion is not a required subject of any fashion course. It's an option if you're interested, but there's nobody teaching it as a normal progression. So all of those wonderful designers coming out don't even know it's an area they can go into.
Yeah. And a very important one.
Massive.
Massive. So I think you and I could probably talk for a long time, but I would love, before we finish this podcast, I would love to be able for everybody to work out where they can find you. So where can they find you and Seated Sewing?
So we've got our website, which is www.seatedsewing.co.uk. I'm also on Instagram, which is Seated Sewing, @Seated Sewing, and we're on Facebook, and we're also on LinkedIn, which is
where we met.
Our paths, yes.
Absolutely. Do you know, I'm intrigued. How many people are you working with then at the moment?
We've got quite a few collaborations on. So we've got 3 in the pipeline that should be coming off this year. One of them is hopefully going to be a fashion show. And we've got some work early next year, which will be, we don't know how big it's going to be, but we've got some exciting models involved who have got connections. So we're hoping with word of mouth, more and more people will hear about us and invest in us or invest in Victoria and really get it knowing that adaptive fashion is out there and available, but also needed.
Yeah, and you've just hit 3 things on the head, haven't you? Available and needed. And I think hopefully today again through the podcast we've raised the awareness again, because talking to you I've kind of picked up so much about what kind of impact you have, how it works, where it could happen, so it's brilliant. So I would like to say a massive thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks for asking me, Lisa.
No, it's been absolutely brilliant. I hope everybody has enjoyed this podcast. I hope, like me, you've taken so much from it, and that now you'll have a little bit more of a think, even when you're in the high street or online and you're shopping, etc. Thank you so much again, and we will see you all next week. Thanks ever so much. Bye. Thanks, Kat. Bye.